Hello and welcome back to the Frugal Granny UK channel. I'm Ali, or Frugal Granny. I'm a 64-and-a-half-year-old pre-retiree and I will be retiring from my office job in higher education at the end of June. I started this channel to document my preparations for retiring from my office job and to document how I cope on what I consider to be a considerably reduced income. When we spoke last, I mentioned that perhaps today we would talk about reverse meal planning. So let's do that. I'm not going to give a terribly formal lecture type presentation, but I'm just going to talk about what I do and what works for me. And if there's anything there that you think could help you, then please take that away. I think maybe just to go back in time a bit, when I had got a family, I was meal planning formally, and that basically means sitting down and writing a list of what we were going to have for breakfast, lunch and tea for the next 7 days. And then I would sit down and write a shopping list that depended very much on what was and wasn't in the pantry or the freezer or in the garden. And when I was in my 40s particularly, and I was actually a mature student in my 40s, and I didn't have terribly much time to go to an actual supermarket, so I would put all of the grocery list into an online shopping site and I would have that delivered. And then we were very much stuck with what I decided we were going to be having on Monday through to Sunday, or Sunday through till the next Saturday. Once I actually stopped studying and went back into work, I started going to the shops myself. I was still meal planning because we were on a set budget. And that continued, I think, right up until about 2018, by which time I'd been on my own about 6 years, and I was still writing a meal plan and shopping to the meal plan. But in 2018, I was told I had to have major surgery and I was not going to be able to lift or drive for at least 6 weeks. And also, just before that surgery, I had surgery on my right hand. I had a ganglion removed from here. So it's a sort of ganglion cyst, and they accidentally cut the nerve in my finger while they were doing it. So my right hand also was out of action at that time. I knew it was going to be slightly out of action, but not as out of action as it turned out to be. So what I did in the month or so running up to that, actually it was 12 weeks I wasn't going to be able to lift or drive. Yeah, not 6. So I sat down and literally wrote a 3-month meal plan. Obviously it rotated a bit. We didn't have the set a different thing every single night, but I wrote a meal plan that would last me for 12 weeks. I shopped a meal plan, I did batch cooking, I put things in the freezer because I wasn't going to be in a position to be able to chop things up. And that worked really, really well. But that, for me, that was a turning point in how I thought about my shopping. And that's when I started stocking up. And once I had recovered from the surgery and I was able to lift and drive again, Brexit, I think, was looming, and all the sort of worries about supply chain issues. And so I stocked up a pantry, I stocked up my freezers. And so when COVID hit, I was one of the lucky people who had quite a lot of stuff in. And the only things that my daughter and I dashed around the shops looking for in the run-up to lockdown were red wine and chocolate. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because my reverse meal planning is very much based on having a well-stocked pantry and 2 or 3 very well-stocked freezers. So there's always a bottom line of basic groceries and frozen goods that I have in the house that I can draw on. If you don't have those things in the house, then reverse meal planning can be a little bit more challenging. In the UK, we used to have a game show called Ready Steady Cook, and the contestants were given, I think, 5 ingredients and given a set amount of time to come up with an innovative recipe. And I like to think about reverse meal planning as rather like Ready Steady Cook. I go to the fridge, open the door, see what's there, and think, right, what can we make out of that? But that sort of confidence to open the door and see a number of items and think, right, I can make that. I think that comes with quite a lot of years experience of cooking and experimenting about what goes with what and what you like and what your family likes, because there's no point throwing something together that you know your family won't eat. I particularly like the curried mince dish from South Africa called bobotie, that's got a baked custard on top of the curried mince, and the custard is made with bread soaked in it. And I gave that to my family one evening because I thought, well, I've got eggs, I've got milk, I've got bread, I've got mince, and we don't really want bolognese again. So I did that and they didn't like it. So, you know, there's no point reverse meal planning something that your family are not going to eat. So what I would say really is that the whole thing about reverse meal planning is knowing what your family will eat and having a certain level of basic provisions in your home anyway that you can draw on. Yeah, so in my freezers, I tend to have chicken breast, minced beef, sausages, stewing steak. That takes a little bit more thinking about. It's not something you can just really whip out. Bacon, chorizo sausage, mozzarella cheese, prawns, salmon, mixed seafood, frozen. I have beef burgers occasionally, peas, green beans, chopped red peppers, which I've put in there myself. In a basket on top of the freezer, I've got onions. I usually have potatoes. I've got a variety of tinned goods and a range of herbs and spices that I know I will need for the sort of recipes that I'm going to make. So if meal planning is writing a meal plan of what you're going to have for the week and then going and shopping it, reverse meal planning is exactly what it says. It does it back to front. You look and see what you've got, then you make the meal plan, and if there's any key bits that are missing, you go and shop those. So for example, tonight, well, I was going to do this tonight, but I've been phoned up while I took the dog to the park at lunchtime to ask if I will go in and cover for somebody who can't make their shift at the supermarket. So I actually don't think I'm going to be cooking tonight after all. But if I had been, I'd gone into the fridge earlier and I'd seen we'd got chicken meat, which I'd picked up from the supermarket on, was it Friday, I think? I found a chicken in the colleague's shop, so I roasted that off, I picked the meat off, and I really need to use that. I've also got 2 avocados, some yogurt. In the freezer, I picked up some Argentinian shrimps as well that day, which I put in the freezer. I've got the onions. Excuse me, Kitty's being a little bit wriggly. Come and say hello, Kitty. There you are. You just say hello quickly and then you can go onto the floor. All right? Right, you go down there. Yeah, Argentinian shrimps as well. So what I was thinking of doing tonight was a sort of quick cheats paella. I was going to saute some onions in some olive oil, both of which I've got. I was going to boil up some rice, and then I was going to stir some chopped red peppers and some sliced mushrooms from the freezer into the onions and olive oil. Add the chicken and the prawns. When the rice was cooked, I was going to just drain that, oh yeah, put some chopped chorizo in as well, and basically just stir it all together, season it, and that's what we would have had. So that literally everything for that meal I've already got in the house in my store cupboards, and I picked up the main protein ingredients quite opportunistically from the colleague shop at the supermarket when I was there late last week. So for me, reverse meal planning can actually mean that. What have I found in the colleague shop at the supermarket? Bringing that home. If it's something that we can eat immediately, keeping that in the fridge. If not, putting that into the freezer for another day. So tonight would have been savoury chicken, and if I get my office work done, I'm working from home, quick enough this afternoon, then I will throw some of that together for my son when he gets back from his job. And then when I get back from the supermarket shift, I'm just going to have to put in an extra couple of hours for the office because everything's gone a little bit haywire today. But if you're starting out with reverse meal planning and you've not really done it before, other than maybe in week 4 of the month when food is beginning to get short, money's beginning to get short, and you are having to go through your freezer and your cupboard and see what you've got, unless you are familiar with that, the best thing to do to start is to take an audit of your pantry, take an audit of your freezers, and see what you've got, and check the expiry dates and use the things that are going to go off first. So it's like in my fridge, the thing that's going to go off first is that chicken meat, and the 2 avocados aren't going to last much longer either. So if I'd been here, I probably would have served one of those up, cut in half, maybe with those Argentinian shrimps as a quick starter, and then maybe had the other one on toast tomorrow as my so-called frugal lunch. So once you see what you've got there, you need to know how to combine those to make a meal that you or your family will like. And if you're not very experienced with experimenting or creating in the kitchen, there are apps that you can use, reverse meal planning apps, where you can type in the ingredients you've got, press the button, and it will come up with a recipe for you. Actually, my son's done that with ChatGPT. He said, can you create me a recipe that's got X% protein and Y% carbs, etc., 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 and doesn't include quinoa. And it's come up with loads of wonderful ideas. I mean, I wouldn't want to eat some of them, but he was very keen on that. So I mean, if you've got AI on your computer, you can query that to help with what can I do with chicken, onion, chorizo, an avocado, and some shrimps. So once you've got an inventory of what's in your pantry or your freezer, then you can actually create your meal plan. I don't really work more than a day or 2 in advance because I'm not cooking for a family every day anymore. I only really cook an evening meal 3 times a week at the moment. So tonight's would have been the savoury chicken, chorizo and shrimp rice. Then I probably wouldn't be cooking Tuesday and Wednesday. The next time I would cook would be Thursday. Any chicken that was left from tonight would probably go, well, it would, no probably about it, it would go in the freezer to be defrosted for another day. And because there's only my son and myself and we live quite a laid back lifestyle, I probably would just say to him in the morning, hey, what do you feel like for tea on Thursday? And he would say, well, let's have carbonara. And again, that would not be a problem for me. I've got the olive oil, I've got the garlic, I've got bacon bits in the freezer, I've got pasta, I've got eggs. That's carbonara. A little bit of parsley, I've got frozen parsley in the freezer. So again, I wouldn't be rushing to the shops for that. Excuse me. The other really good thing about reverse meal planning is it doesn't just save you money by stopping you rushing to the shops to get stuff on the spur of the moment, but it also reduces food waste, because if you're like looking at what's going to go off or go out of date quickest, and you use that, then that thing is not going to get thrown away because you've decided that night you want to eat the other thing. So it saves money, it stops food waste, and it saves time as well, because you're not rushing out to the shops. And not everybody can rush out to the shops either, because some of us live a long way from the shops. I'm lucky I live quite close to the shops, so if I did want to rush out, it wouldn't be a problem. But the reason I don't rush out is because if I do, I probably wouldn't be able to park when I get back. So I try and get my shopping from the supermarket when I'm actually working there, because it saves an awful lot of hassle. I think the other thing that reverse food planning does is it does increase your creativity. And a little bit like if you learn a musical instrument and you have to practice your scales and arpeggios, after a while you know which notes go together, you know how to accent that to sort of make a certain mood or tone. And I think it's the same with food. Once you know what goes together, you can sort of tweak that depending on what you've got available and make some new things. And I think the prime example of that in my life was way back when I was married and we'd had a load of people round for a work barbecue. We had quite a lot of sausages and beef burgers and potato salad and baked beans left. And I wasn't really in a position to sort of just scrape all that into the bins. So I did some reverse meal planning, and I came up by accident with 2 recipes that we ate as a family for quite a few years after that. And in that respect, I also work on the principle of what they can't see isn't going to hurt them. So I put the potato salad in a colander and I washed off the chives and the mayonnaise. I chopped the potatoes a little bit smaller and fried those off. I cut the beef burgers up into chunks. I stirred those into the fried potatoes, topped it with the baked beans, heated that through, and served it up with barbecue sauce as cowboy hash, and they absolutely loved it. So that reduced food waste, and it was creative, and it saved me having to rush out that day to get fish fingers or spaghetti hoops or whatever it was that was their favourite thing at that time. And with the sausages, there were still potatoes and baked beans left. The next day, I boiled some rice, fried off some onions. I put a can of tomatoes in, and the baked beans, and curry powder to taste, chopped the sausages, they were just ordinary pork sausages, and chopped them into 4 or 5 chunks, stirred those into the curry base and served them with rice, and thus sausage curry was born in our house, and it's something that we have eaten ever since. So it's basically got onions, tomatoes, baked beans, cooked potatoes, and chopped up sausages in. I mean, it sounds gross, but in actual fact, it's wonderful comfort food on a cold evening by the fire in front of a movie. And I actually buy sausages now so that I can make that. I keep tinned potatoes in the pantry. So these days I would chop up an onion, empty a can of baked beans into that. I would have fried off the sausages, chopped them up, throw them in, drained the tinned potatoes, chop them up, throw them in, curry powder to taste, maybe a bit of coriander leaf and nigella seeds, and there you go, sausage curry, and nobody's ever complained. So creativity, that's the other thing. So yeah, basically, what more is there to say about reverse meal planning than that? Is just look at what you've got and make the most of it. And to be honest with you, that has been one of my life mottos for a very, very long time, is do the best you can with what you've got. And that's all reverse meal planning is, doing the best you can with what you've got. And there's nothing much more to say. So I hope that's helpful, and we can talk about it a bit more if you want. If you want to see some of the things I cook, they are on Instagram. I'm very aware that a lot of you don't have Instagram. I might see if I can start posting some of those things on YouTube. I think you can put posts on YouTube. So I'll see if I can do that next time I cook something that goes up on Instagram. And then those of you who are not on that platform can see it as well. And as I said, once I've learned to edit, then maybe we can have some cooking videos. But until then, I'm sorry, it's just my face and my explanations. Anyway, it's nice to see you, and I'll see you again on Thursday for a coffee and catch up. By then I will have had my goodbye coffee time at the office. I will have been to see my consultant at the hospital, and hopefully some of the pre-retirement paperwork might have moved along a bit. So there will be things to report back on. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. It's lovely to see you. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.